All right, let's get into it. Today, we're decoding modern management. Now, this is something most of us deal with every day, but it's way more than just a job title. It's this incredibly dynamic, challenging, and honestly, fascinating discipline. So, right off the bat, let's bust a huge myth. The idea that your best performer, your star player, is automatically going to be a great manager. It just doesn't work that way. And here's why. A specialist, well, they get results through their own hard work. But a manager, their entire job is to get results through other people. That is a massive shift in thinking. A manager's real work is all about coordinating, empowering, and basically setting the stage for their team to shine. Okay, so here's what we've got on tap. First, we'll look at how management thinking has evolved. Then, we'll jump into the wild reality of what a manager's day actually looks like. From there, we'll get into the super important role of ethics, and we'll wrap up by looking at how AI is changing the game for leaders. So let's kick things off with the management evolution. This is really the story of how we went from seeing people as just cogs in a machine to seeing them as creative partners.
In the early 1900s, it was all about one thing: efficiency. You had guys like Frederick Winslow Taylor who literally talked about retooling workers as if they were pieces of equipment. Then Max Weber came along and championed rigid, rule-based bureaucracy. But then the famous Hawthorne studies happened, and it was a total game changer. It basically forced everyone to admit, oh wait, employees are actual human beings with social needs. That insight really paved the way for a much more human-focused way of thinking. And this whole shift was just perfectly summed up by Douglas McGregor with his Theory X and Theory Y. Theory X is that old school, classical view. People are lazy, you can't trust them, you have to watch them like a hawk. But Theory Y, that's the complete opposite. It assumes people are actually creative, that they want responsibility, and that they can manage themselves just fine, thank you very much. And this presents every leader with a really fundamental choice. Which of these two assumptions are you going to build your company on?
And that question brings us right to the present day, because the ideas in Theory Y are the engine behind some of the most forward-thinking companies around. We're talking about bossless organizations and self-managed teams. Places like Zappos or the Dutch healthcare group Buurtzorg, where nurses are empowered to make huge decisions on their own. It all comes down to one core idea: trust. Trust people with responsibility and watch them soar. All right, now let's get real. Let's talk about the modern manager's reality. If you're picturing someone sitting quietly in an office, thinking deep strategic thoughts, well, you can forget that. Today, it is all about chaos, culture, and contingency. Just how chaotic is it? Well, some classic research by Mintzberg found that top executives spend, on average, less than 9 minutes on any single task. Less than 9 minutes. It is just a constant barrage of interruptions and switching gears. And if you thought that was nuts, listen to this. For a first-line supervisor, that number plummets to an average of just 48 seconds per activity. 48 seconds. I mean, how can you possibly think, let alone lead, in chunks of less than a minute? It just shows you the incredible pressure these managers are under every single day. So with all that chaos, how do you even function? One of the go-to tools is the classic ABC model. Your A items are the crucial, gotta-do-it-now tasks. B items are important but can wait, and C items are the nice-to-dos. But look, the real magic isn't just making the list. It's having the iron discipline to focus only on your A items and to say no to everything else. Now that is a real leadership skill. This chaotic world leads to a really important modern idea, the contingency view. Basically, it throws the whole idea of a one-size-fits-all management playbook out the window. There's no single best way to manage. What's genius in one company could be a complete disaster in another. Real success is all about being able to adapt your style to the unique factors, the contingencies of whatever situation you're in.
And one of the biggest things managers have to deal with is corporate culture. Leaders have this whole toolkit of subtle but really powerful ways to shape it. A symbol, like Apple's clean design, just screams simplicity. Stories, like Huawei's wolf spirit, celebrate things like tenacity. You've also got heroes, slogans, ceremonies. These things are not just corporate fluff. They are the actual tools leaders use to build and reinforce the culture they want.
And that awesome responsibility to shape a culture, well, that leads us directly into our next big topic, the ethical imperative. Because let's be honest, leadership means you're almost constantly trying to find your way through the gray areas between right and wrong. To get a handle on this, it helps to think of 3 domains of action. On one end, you have the law. things that are clearly legal or illegal. On the complete other end, you have free choice, your personal decisions that the law doesn't touch. But that huge, messy, tricky space in the middle, that is the domain of ethics. It's where no specific law tells you what to do, but there are definitely shared ideas about what's right. So how on earth do you make good calls in that gray area? Well, there are a few frameworks that can really help. The utilitarian approach asks, what's going to do the most good for the most people? The moral rights approach zeroes in on protecting basic human rights. And the practical approach asks a simple question: would my peers think this is an acceptable decision? Using these different lenses can help any manager make a much more thoughtful, defensible choice. This focus on ethics is part of a massive shift in how we think about the purpose of business itself. For decades, the shareholder view was king. A company's only job was to make money for its owners, period. But now, the stakeholder view is really taking over. This idea says that a company is responsible to everyone it affects. That includes employees, customers, the local community, the environment, all of it. And that stakeholder idea leads right to the concept of the triple bottom line. It's this idea that companies need a new scorecard. They shouldn't just be measured by financial profit, but also by their social impact, that's people, and their environmental impact, the planet. And believe me, these aren't just trendy buzzwords anymore. They're becoming totally essential to modern business strategy. Okay, last but not least, let's look at what's coming, the AI-assisted leader. Because technology, and especially AI, isn't just about making things faster, it's actually starting to nudge us all into becoming better managers. And this has given rise to something called nudge management. The whole idea is to use AI to crunch data on how teams are doing and then send managers these little personalized, bite-sized prompts, or nudges, that are all based on proven behavioral science. The key here is that it's not about replacing the manager, it's about augmenting them, like a coach whispering in their ear. So what does that actually look like? Well, imagine an AI platform like Humu. It acts like your own personal data-driven coach. It might look at team feedback and then send you a perfectly timed little reminder on your phone that says, hey, remember to publicly recognize someone on your team today. It's these tiny, consistent prompts that can add up and make a huge difference in a manager's habits and ultimately how happy and engaged their team is.
So look at how far we've come, from the assembly lines of the early 1900s all the way to AI-powered coaching. It's pretty clear that management is this incredibly complex, always changing, and deeply human job. And that leaves us with one final big question to think about. As technology like AI keeps making us more and more efficient, what ethical responsibilities will you choose to prioritize when you have to balance the needs of people with the pursuit of profit in the companies of tomorrow?